What if I told you if by the end of this project you will build a production-ready Movie Watchlist API from scratch? Not a toy project, not another CRUD tutorial, a real backend application with clean architecture, RESTful API, authentication-ready design, proper validation, database integration, and code that's actually worth putting in your portfolio. If you have learned the basics of C# and you're ready to build something that feels like a real software, you're exactly where you need to be. Before jumping in, if you enjoy this kind of content, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. And one quick thing, this video isn't sponsored, so everything you will see comes from my real world experience. So, to help us, if you know a business owner that needs a modern website or a web application, sending them our way help us keep producing free content like this. Alright, so let's build something awesome. So now let's create a new solution in an empty solution. We will use it, and in it we will use the .NET API, and inside of it we will use the .NET CLI for the code. So we can remove it and let's call it sign list, and let's create it. Now let's go over to the terminal and run out this command. First of all, let's initialize the Git repository. So git init, and let's use the .NET CLI to create a new solution, and it will be the line list. So now we have created it, so we already have it. Now write .NET. We will create a new web API /n, and it will be list dot API dot o, and it will be list.api, run it as well, and there we have it. Next we'll create the template for the test, so .NET new unit for the test dash n, and it will be in list.api.test, and it will be dash o list.api.test. So this is for the test. Next .NET solution, so sln add list.api, and we will also need to add the test, so list.api.test. And finally .NET add list.api.test reference. It will reference the list.api, not test. Great, now let's close the terminal and go to the API. So right here, let's go to the API, let's go to the sign list, and let's add a few item groups. We also need a few things. So first of all, let's use package reference. We will use include, and we will use the authentication burst, so Microsoft.ASP.NET Core, and we will add the bear. Great, and the version for that, it will be 10.0.9. Great. Next, let's add another package. This will include the entity framework, so Microsoft for the entity framework called design, so this is the one, and the version will be 10.0.9. so this will be the one. Now we have a few properties for it, so include asset for the runtime, build in native, also content files and analyzers, and build sensitive. Now private asset, we send it to all, and this is for it. You don't need to worry about it too much. Now we also need a few more packages, so the next one will be the bcrypt, so bcrypt for the net next, and we will add it at the latest version, which is 4.2.0, and this is for that package. Now let's change it a little bit, and finally we'll add the entity framework for PostgreSQL, so npg-sql, the entity framework for PostgreSQL, and the version will be 10.0.9. 0.0.3. Now those are the dependencies that we need, nothing too special. We add for OpenAPI we already have it. We have the buried that we need for security, for the database and everything else, and for encrypting things, and for PostgreSQL, and everything else is already included in our .NET project. Now we need two different PostgreSQL databases, one for testing and one for local development. So let's go ahead and create our Docker Compose file for that. So right here, let's create this file. This will be the Docker compose.yaml file. No task yet. Nice. Now let's write it super quick. So services, and we will have the DB. So we will have the list.-db. This will be a regular database. We will use the image of Postgres at 15 alpine. So 15-alpine. Next, for the environment, we'll use Postgres-user. It will be super simple, user 123. And next, for the Postgres password, it will be password 123. And for the database, it will be the sys_db. This will be for the environment. Now for the ports, we will map the 5432 to 5432 of the container. Now we can change it if this port isn't matched, so for 33 or that. And if you already have a running container on this, just go ahead to Docker and stop it. And finally, for the volumes, so volume, it will be list-data var-lib-postgresql/data, and this will be it. Now it will look kind of the same for the test DB, so let's just duplicate it. And now it will also add the test for it, and right here we will have the test right here as well, and the port will be 3, and right here we'll also have the test. Finally, let's define the volumes. So volumes, we will have the list, we will have the sign list underline data, and also the one for the test. And that's all. And there we have it. Now let's go to the terminal and run this compose docker. So docker compose app-t, and there we have it. Great, now we can actually go ahead and monitor this database. So we can monitor those two databases. Now we don't actually need to monitor the test databases, just the regular database. So Postgre will be localhost port 5432. We will have the user 123 and the password 123 as well. And the database name is list underline db. Now let's test out the connection, and it is successful. Click on OK, and now we can monitor our database in local development. Next that we have set up our database, let's go to the users and the watch list entities or models that we should create. So let's go ahead. Right here in the API, we will create a new directory for our models. They're like entities, and let's create the user and the watchlist status. So first of all, let's create the user one. We will have public g UID, it will be for the ID. Next, we'll have string for email and string for the password. So public string for the email and for the password. So for the password as well, and we will assign them both to an empty string empty. Nice. So this is for the users, nothing too fancy. Next, let's go ahead and create an enum for the watchlist status. So watchlist status, let's create it. Now this enum will have to watch and also watch. So we'll have two statuses. We want to watch something, or we already watch it. That's it. Next, let's create the watchlist item model. So watch list item, and let's create it, and it will add a few fields. So first of all, we'll have the ID, so the ID. Next, let's duplicate it because we have right here the user ID. Next, we will have a public integer for the movie database, the movie database ID. Next, we will have the title, and next we'll have a public string, but it can be nullable for the postal path for the URL. So we'll have that as well. We will also have the watchlist status for the status itself, and we also need an integer for the rating, and we also have the created. So this is for the watchlist item, not that complicated as you can see. Next, that we have our models, so let's go ahead right here and add a new class. This will be for the application, so list database context, so db context, and it will be inside of the data directory, so we will put slash in front of it, and we have it. Now it should inherit from the db context. Now let's create the constructor, so it will be list context, and inside it we will have the db context with the options, and we will use that base with options, and nice. Now we need for the models we need user and watchlist, so it will be public db set of user. Let's import it, and it will be users, and it will go to a set of users. Next we will have very similar, so db set, this one will be for the watch list item, and watch list items, and it goes like that. Now we need a unique constraint on the image, so we will have a protected on created, and the builder for the user entity, and for has index, and we will go for the email, and we will ensure that the email is unique value. Now we need to go to the program CS file, and at this stage we need to wire up the MVC controllers and the DB context points and the connection string configuration. So there is no authentication yet, and this will come, all of this will come with the register endpoints. So right here we need to go to the program CS file, so let's go, and we need to ensure a few things. So first of all, let's start with ordering everything and removing all of that. Let's in the end app.run in the end, but we will need a few things before that. Now let's actually implement the important things in here. So right here we will need to add a few services, so we need to add the controllers, and we need to add the context. So services dot add db context, and the context is the db that we have created here, so see db context. And for the options we will go to options that use npsql, and we will get the configuration for the database right here for the connection string. Great, now we have built the application. Now we need first of all app.map controllers, and then we can actually run it. Next, in the application JSON right here we need to add the connection strings, so connection strings, and this one will be for the one that we have defined right here for the ceiling db. So let's go ahead and have the connection db. So let's add the connection strings. So we need to first of all define the host for local host. You already remember that. We need to define the port, not post port. This will be 5432. We need to next go ahead use the database. This one is list dash db underline db. Next we need the username, which will be user123 as we have defined. And for the password we also need password123, and we need to add trust server certificate. Right here it's trust certificate, and we will set it up to true. So this is the connection string, and next, and now we have set up everything. So let's go to the terminal and let's add everything, and now let's commit it. So git commit with the simple message of, so now that we have finished with that, let's go ahead and commit it. Now we can use the terminal, or we can use the built-in options of JetBrains. Now we can check everything, and also, but exclude from your checks just from the checks exclude the new one that we have created in the models one. So for the database stuff, remove all of the stuff like the users, purchase item, and status. Remove that. We will commit them in a separate commit. So this one will be for initializing the project, and now we can commit this. Great. And next it will be for running the database. So database, running the database with Docker, and we will just use Docker. So commit it, and next we'll commit all of the remaining changes. Next we'll commit all of the remaining changes, and this will be creating the models for the tables of the DB database. Great. Now let's commit this as well. So there we have it. So we have set up everything, and now let's go to our next. So we finish up with setting up our database. Now let's close all of these beautiful files, and now we will go ahead and create our register endpoints for JWT. Next, we'll go ahead and create our security and authentication, authorization, JWTs, tokens, and more. So for that, let's go ahead right here and let's add a new interface. This will be an interface for the token service. So it will be token service, and it will be inside of the services directory. So let's go ahead with that. So right here we will define one method that will be just for creating token, and it will return string, and it will be create token, and it will get a user inside it. Now let's make the imports. Next we will implement this interface, and the implementation will read the key, the issuer, and the audiences from our configuration that we will add in a bit. So first of all, let's go ahead. So this is the interface. Now before we will run to the implementation, we need a few things in our application JSON file. So right here we will need to add a few configuration for the JWT. So right here we will have the JWT, and we will have a few things inside it. First of all will be the key. We will add it in a bit. Next will be the issuer, so issuer, and it will be just the sign list. Next will be the audiences, so audiences, and it will be just very simple. Let's define it to a sun list client. Great. Now for the key, open up your terminal, and inside of the terminal simply write open SSL random dash base 64, and we will choose 256 characters for the key, and let's copy this and paste it right here. It should be 256 because the security is expecting a long signing key with 256. Next, let's create the implementation for the token service. So token service, and it will implement the token service, and now we will have it. Now we will need a few properties, so it will be a private, read only for the configuration, and we will just use a simple constructor for it. And now let's go ahead and implement this beautiful method. So first of all we need to get the key, so var key, and it will be a new sim signing key security, so it will be this option, and we will use the encoding dot utf8, so utf8 dot get bytes, so get the bytes, and we'll go to the configuration, so we'll use the configuration to get to the configuration, and we will find the ones with JWT. Next we will create the credentials, so var credentials, and we assign it to a new signing key credentials. This is the one we need to create the credentials, and we will add the key and the security algorithm. We will use the one with 256, so it will be HMAC for 256 signature. So we will use that. And now let's create the token descriptor. So var for token descriptor, we will use a new security token descriptor, and let's give it a few things. So first of all, we'll have the subject, and it will be a new claims identity. So claims identity, and inside it we will have a new of array, and let's actually implement it. First of all, we'll have new claim, and inside of the claim we will first of all define the type. So it will be claim types, and it will be the name identifier, which will be the ID, and we will set it up to string. Next we'll have another claims. This one will be for the email. So the claim type will be for the email, and we'll just add the email. So this is for the subject. Next, for the expiration time, simply let's just use date time, and we will use UTC, and we will add 7 days to the token. Next, for the signing credentials, we'll just add the credentials. And for the issuer, we will add from the configuration we'll add the JWT issuer, and the same will go for the audiences. So we'll just use the configuration for the audience, and that's it. Next, let's actually create the token. So first of all, token handler, it will be a new JWT security token handler, and we will create the token with the descriptor and return it to the client. A constructor for it, and before we will create any method, let's create a few records. So there will be public records for the public. So now before we'll implement the register method, and because in the user we only have email and password, the request will look kind of similar. So for that, let's create a few records. We will need a record for the auth request, as the request will look the same, which we will get the email and the password, and also the response will just be the token. Now it will be HTTP post for the register, so register, and now let's implement it. It will be of course asynchronous, so it will return a task of action result, and with the authentication response, and we will have the request in the body. Great. Now let's make a quick check if we will have in our database. Let's go to the users dot any async. If we have any one with this email, so user goes to user dot email equal to the request dot email. If we have any of this, we should return conflict with the message of email is already in use. Great, now we should use await right here. So await, because this is asynchronous operation. Next, let's create the user. So var user, and it will be a new user. So first of all, let's use the email, and for the password, let's initialize it. We will not just use a plain string password. So for that, we will use the bcrypt. So bcrypt.hash password with the request. Nice. Now for the ID of the user, so let's go to the model. The ID of the user will be created by the database itself. So we'll use the key to notify it. So this is for it. Now we need to create the actual content. Now we need to save the user and create the token. So db.users.add the user, and let's save the changes. So db.save changes async. Now we need to use await, not async, await. Now we save the user, and finally we should return the token. So var token, and we will use the token service dot create token with the user, and we will return the token right now. Great. So there we have the register. The login will be quite similar. So login, it will be quite similar. So I'll just copy it and change a few things. So I'll just copy it and change a few things. So copy. Now let's change this from register to login. We expect to get the same request. We'll remove this if check because we expect to have this user. We don't want to create any user, but we do want to find it. So var user, we will find the user by its email. Next, if the user is null, we will just return 404. So we will return not found if the user is null. Next, we will make a few if checks. So if the user, so we will get to the user dot password is not equal to this password. Next, we need to verify a few. Next, and finally, we need to verify that the passwords are correct. So for that, we will use if, and inside of it, we will use the bcrypt. So bcrypt, and we will use the verify. First of all, we'll add the request user, and then we will add the user, the password from the user. As you can see right here with the help of IntelliJ that show us. First of all, we have the text one, and then we will have the hash password one. Now it will return true if the results are correct, so we will reverse it, and if it's not, we will return unauthorized. And finally, if we pass that, it means that the password is correct, so we can go ahead and create the token with that user and return it to the client. And finally, in the program CS file, we need to add this new service that we have created. So right here, we'll add the builder services, and we will add a new service. So add scope, and we will add the I token service, token service, and token serve. Now we need to add one more thing, not exactly one, but a few more things before we have the security and everything needed. So services, and we will use the add authentication, and we will use JWT bear default, so JWT bear defaults dot authentication schema. Next, we will use the add JWT bear, and we will go with the options into this lambda, and we'll go with the options into this arrow function. We will use options, and for the token validator parameters, and we will create a new validator parameters. Now for validator issuer, we'll set it to true because we have the issuer for the audiences as well, validate lifetime as well, issuer signing key as well, and also we need to tell them from where we have it. So the valid issuer will come from not JWT issuer, JWT.issuer. Next, we will have the audiences that will be similar, and for the security key, so it will be issuer signing key. It will be a new SIM key, and we will use in coding.utf, and we will get the bytes from the key right here. So this is it, right here and right here. Beautiful. And finally, right here, we'll use the builder dot services, and we will add the authorization. Great. And also in the app, we will add the middleware for the applications. So we'll add the authentication and the authorization. Great. So we have created the security with token registration and everything needed, and it was super fast. And frankly, security is one of the things that I most like about .NET, and it's much faster than all of the other frameworks and other languages that I have used, so it's quite capable and amazing to use. Now let's commit those changes, and then we will create our tests. So right here. So now before we will create a test, let's commit those changes. So right here, let's click and commit. So we will write creating security with JWT tokens and the register slash login endpoint. So let's commit this, and now let's continue to the test. And we should implement the web application. So now that we have finished with our security, we need to create the test for it. So So right here to the test folder, right here, go ahead to this file, and we will need to add a few more packages. So let's add a new package. This one will be from Microsoft, and it will be for testing. So Microsoft, and it will be the core for testing. So ASP.NET for ASP.NET Core, and this one will be for testing. So Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.mvc, and this will be for the testing. The version will be 10.0.9, and this will be for the first package. Next, we need the entity frameworks. So we need Microsoft.entity framework, and this will be the version of 10.0.9, and we also need the entity frameworks dot relational. So dot framework, and we will pick up the relational from here, and those are for the packages that we need. Great. Now we can close it. Now we need to actually go ahead and create new class, and in this, so now let's go ahead and manage our test DB. So it will be inside of the site list for the web application factory. So let's go ahead. We will use the web application factory with the program, and now let's go ahead to the connection string. So we need private, so private for constant, and it will be a string for the test connection string. So for that, we will go right to here to the application settings, and we will copy this. So let's copy this from here. Copy. Now let's go right into here, paste it. Now we need to change just small things like the port here, and the database is also the test DB. So change that, and that's all. We shouldn't actually need this, and this is for the connection string. Now let's go next, and you can use the auto completion. We will overwrite the configure web host. So let's go for it. We will use the builder dot configure services. So configure services will take a service and go into that. And now we first of all need a variable. So var db descriptor, and it will be services dot sign or default. So sign or default, single or default, and default go to all dot service type, and let's check if this is the service type of, if this is type of db context options, and we will have the context that we came from our context. So list db context. Now click, because we will reference it. So this is it. There you have it. Semicolon. Do not forget. Now if the descriptor is not null, so if the descriptor is not null, we will use the services, and we will move the db descriptor. Next, we will use the services dot add db context. So add db context. We will add for this db context. We go with options dot use SQL, and we will use the test connection string, and this is for it. Now finally we will create the constructor. So sign list web factory, and we will need a few things. So using var scope, I will assign it to services dot create scope. Next, for the database, so var db, it will be equal to scope dot service provider get required services for this context. Next, we will create the migration, so db database dot migrate, and that's all. So this is for our configuration. So this is for changing from our local development database to our test database. Next, let's create the actual test. The rest of our test class will inherit. So let's go ahead, and it will use I class fixture, and we will use the factory. So factory, and also the I as lifetime, this one, and great. Now we need a few fields right here. Ignore this run line for now. For protected, read only, protected, read only, and we will use HTTP client, and it will be the client. And we also need protected read only for the factory itself. So factory, and there we have it. Now we'll have a protected integration test base. For the constructor, we will have the factory. So factory, and we will assign the factory to the factory and the client to the factory.createClient. Next, we will use a public asynchronous, and it will have the task, and it will be initialized and asynchronous. So first of all, using var, let's create the scope. It will be factory.services.create scope. Next, for the DB, so var DB is equal to provider with the context. Next, we will use await, because we'll use DB dot database dot execute SQL. So execute SQL row sync, and we will write a few things. So truncate table, and we will have slash right here to set. It will be the watch list items table hash, and also for the users table. So slash, and right here we'll have the users table, capital U, and we'll have cat, and that's for this one. Also, we need another public task, and it will be just use autocompletion here. It will be a task for dispose async and complete task. Next, use protected, and it will be asynchronous. This one will be a task or string, which return a string, and it will be called register and get token async. So register and get token async, and we will have a string for the email. Let's assign it a default of user it app example.com, example.com, and for the password it will be a password 123, simple. So let's continue. So var response, so we'll go to it's an asynchronous operation, so we need to use await client dot post as JSON async, and it will be to slash API slash auth slash register, and it will be a new of email and password. Great. So we have the response. Next, for the actual body of the response, so body, and we will get the body. So content dot read from JSON async, and right here we need to create a type thread. It will be the authentication response for the tokens. So protected a record for the auth response no, and we will only have the tokens of string token. So we'll use it right here. So auth response DTO, and finally we'll return the token. So return body or token, and we want to return this. So great, with that base class that we have, the register test will be shown, and registration with a new email, and confirm that you will get back. So great, so there you have it. Now with that class in place, our test will be much shorter and sweeter. So right here, let's create the test for the authentication endpoint. So auth controller or just auth test. So let's use auth controller test. So let's do this. Now it will inherit from the integration test base. Now it needs the constructor, and the constructor will be simple, as you can see. And now let's actually create those tests. So fact, we will have public async task, and it will be for the register, and we will have underline with new email, and it should return OK. So should return OK, and token, and hash the password. Great. Next for the test, so var response. So let's use the client dot post as JSON async, so as JSON async, and we will pass to the register with new email, and we will set up the email to email at gmail.com, and we also have the password that we will have at password, and there we have it. Now we will need to use await for it. Great. And now let's go on to our assertion. So first of all, we will assert equals for the response. So first of all, we want the response to be HTTP status code, and it should be okay. And our response status code should be okay. Great. Now that the response is okay, next we want to take the body. So when you will use read as read from JSON, and we'll use the DTO. Next we will need to assert that this is a null, so assert not null, not for the body but for the token. So string dot is null or empty or white space. We will use the body and the token, and want assert not null, we will assert that this will be false, so that means that we do have a token. Next we will use the scope, so now we have ensured that we do have the token. Next, let's ensure that the record is in the data. So using var scope, let's go ahead to the factory, and we will use the services dot create scope. Next, let's go to the DB. So DB will be scope provider, and we will need to find the user. So var user is equal to, this is asynchronous operation, so await db dot users, so users dot single async, and it is user that goes into user dot email, where the user dot email will be equal to this email that we are writing, so email at gmail.com, and this is for it. Now we will assert not null for the user, so not null for the user, and also we will assert that the password is not be, so we'll assert not null for the user, and also we want to assert that the password isn't a plain text password. So for that we will use assert not equal, and we will use word password that you have right here and the password of the user. Nice. So this is for the API path. Now let's public asynchronous task. This will be for the register, be with duplicate email, and it should return conflict, not bad request, but let's use data completion, should return conflict. Now let's implement this. So let's just copy the response from here because we will use it. So there we have it. Now before we will make this request, so we will have a duplicated email. Right here the password doesn't matter if there is a different password actually. And next we will assert that our code is conflict is 409, if you cannot recall. So this is to ensure that our database has a unique values. Great, so this is for our register test for the endpoint that we have in the controllers right here. We should return okay, not like this. Great, and also okay for this. And right here in the login, right here, if user is null, let's go ahead right here, or we will return unauthorized in both cases, and let's remove that. Now our code is cleaner, more cleaner if we will remove this as well. Great, now back to our test. So now let's run up our test. So right here, let's run. Also let's take the bodies, so great. And now we will make the same assertion that we did right here for the token. So that's, the assertion is very similar, just the endpoint is different actually. And this is for our test. Next, let's create another test. This one will be for, this test will be, so now let's create another test. This test will be for when. So now let's create another test. This test will be for when we will try to log in with wrong credentials. We will first do with the email and then with the password. So let's use the fact public asynchronous logging with invalid credentials, and it should return unauthorized. Let's use invalid email. Let's make it simple. So right here, first of all, we will create the user. First of all, we will create the user like we did right here, and also this quest. So we can just copy it to here. Now the difference, it will be that we will use the not correct password. Super simple. And now we have it, and now we just expect that the code will be unauthorized. Now let's check out what's happening if we try to register with the wrong email. So let's try response, and it will be which with client. Let's just copy it. Let's just copy this, but this time it will be with the wrong email. So it will be var wrong email, and this will be the wrong password. Let's just use it right here, wrong password. And for the password, let's make it the correct password. So password 123, and the email will be not email at gmail.com. And let's make a similar assertion. So we'll assert that it will be unauthorized. So now we have the test. Now let's run all of the tests. So run all, and everything is succeeding, as you can see right here, and also by the little V sign up here. So this is everything we need for the authentication. Now let's continue to the next part, which will be the movie search. Now we finish with the authentication, so let's close it. And next, let's create the main feature of the application, which is the movie search and watchlist. So the movie search will call out a third-party API, the movie database, and that's a little problem for testing. In your test, you don't want to rely on a third-party API, on a network access, API key, etc. Now, the fix to this is never let the controllers talk to the HTTP client directly. Instead, we will define an interface with the single method for searching, and the controller will be depend on the interface. Now, in actual production, we will use an actual implementation for it with the API key and everything. But for our test, we will mock. But in our API key test, we will mock this service to create to return the result that we want. So let's go ahead and start to build it. So in services right here, we need a new interface. So a new interface. This interface will be for movie catalog client for searching, and it will have one method. It will be asynchronous, of course, because we are talking directly to the internet, and it will return a DTO that we will define. Let's call this DTO a movie search result. We will define it in a bit, and inside of this interface we will define the return type will be task, of course, because this is a synchronous operation. It will return the read only list, so read only list, and this list will be for a DTO that we will create in a bit. This DTO will be the movie search result, and it will be called just search async, and we will have the title, so string title for the search, a cancellation token, and it will be a cancellation token, and it will be the default. Now let's create this DTO. So right here, let's add new record of that. Great. And here we will have an integer for the movie database ID. We will have the string for the title. We will also have a string for the poster path, but let's add right here a question mark, because some movies will not have a poster in some movie will not have a poster in the movie database, right here. So there we have our interface, and now for the actual implementation. So let's add a new class, and it will be the movie database catalog client, and it will be it. Now we'll use movie catalog client, and now we need to implement this method, but we need a few fields. So first of all, we need a private static read only. So static read only JSON serializer option. So serializer options, and it will be the JSON options, and we will assign it into new with property name case insensitive to true. Great. Now we need the HTTP client and the configuration. So HTTP client and another private read only I configuration for the configuration, because we need to get the API key from somewhere. Now for the public, the movie database controller constructor, and we will have the configuration in this. And now let's define it. Great. And now let's implement this method. So var for the API key, we will get it from the configuration, and this configuration will be the movie database API key. We will define it in a bit. And for the URL, it will be search/movie API underline key, and we will insert our API key right here, and we'll need the endside and query, and the query will be, and right here we'll use URI dot escape data string, so escape data string, and we will add the title right here for the query. Now for the response, so var response, it will be, we will need to first of all await, then we'll go to the HTTP client, so HTTP client dot get from JSON async, and the result will be the response for the movie database. So it will be a response, it will be the movie database search response. We will create it in a bit, and we will have the URL right here, the JSON options, and the cancellation token. Next, let's check out if response dot result, the result will be not null, and in that case we will return. Now if the response and the result is null, in that case we will return array dot empty array of movie search result, so movie search result. But if we do have the result, we will return our response dot result, and we would use the select method for our result, go into a new movie result with the r.id, r.title, and r.poster, and we will finally convert it into a list, so to list. So this is for the method. Now let's actually implement this search response. So it will be a public record for this one, and we will have just a list of the movie database movies, and we need to create this, and it will be the result. So it should be results with an S. Now we need this record, so it will be a record for the movie database movie, and it will have the ID, and it will have the ID title, and also will have the property of JSON property name, and we will find the property that is called poster path, and it will be the poster path, and it can be nullable. And now that we have it, let's go to the program CS file to define those services. So right here, builder services dot add HTTP client, HTTP. So it will be add HTTP client. We will use the I movie catalog client and the movie database client, and right here we will take the client and go into this, and for the basic address we will use the movie database org3. This is the URL for it. Great. Now to the application settings. Right here we should have the movie database, and we will have the API key, and right here we will have our API key. When we will move to production, we will actually implement this. So now let's go ahead and implement the controller. So right here, let's add a new controller for the main things of our application, and it will be the movie controller. Enter. Now let's add a few annotation like API controller, and we will route it into slash API slash movies, and we will also need to authorize for this endpoint. So this is for the authorization. Now of course let's add controller base, and we will need the iCatalog movie, the interface that you have created. So it will be a private, not I movie client, and for the movie, and it will inject it. Now let's create a GET request, and it will be at the search endpoint, let's call it, and it will be public asynchronous. This is asynchronous operation, and it will return a task of action result with the I read only list of movie search results. So movie search result, and it will be called search, and we will get the query or the title from the query itself. So now let's implement this. It's super easy. As you can see, we just get a result from here and we just return them. Super simple. So this is actually everything. Now we can actually go and create the test. So now let's go and commit everything to GitHub. So now that we finished with that, let's commit everything. So right in Rydell to the commit panel, now we have two separate commit to handle. First of all is the authentication. So let's go into the authentication. We didn't commit after the test. So creating the test for the fancy auth endpoints to verify that those endpoints are valid. This looks nice. Let's commit this. Now this commit is for the movie database. So creating the, you can also use adding the movie search to the application. So we can commit this, and now we can move on to the test. So right here in the test. So now before we will write the test, we will first of all, before we will write the test, we will need to create the mock for our movie catalog client. So we will add a new, and we will call it fake movie catalog client, and it will implement the I. So right here, let's add a new, and it will be fake movie catalog client. Now it will implement the I movie catalog client. Now it should implement this. Now it should have a few properties first. So we will use a private static read only dictionary of string and a list of movie results. So movie search result, and it will be the catalog, and we will assign it into a new string compare dot ordinary ignore case, and in here we will have the matrix, and we will assign it matrix, and we will assign it into new, and right here we'll have a new movie result, and the result we can add 603 for the ID. Next, let's add the name, which will be the matrix, and let's not forget the poster. So it will be matrix poster JPG, which is an image format. Next, let's create another one, which will be Inception, great movie, Inception, and let's create a new item in it, and it will be a new movie result. The ID will be let's just use 2705 just for the example. It will be called, of course, Inception, and it will be the Inception poster JPG, just Inception poster, and there we have it. And there we will have our mock right here. Next, let's actually implement this. So let's use for each loop. So for, and we will have the key and the result in the catalog. Now, if title dot contains the key and a string compare composition of ordinary ignore case, in that case in that case, we will just return the task dot from result, and it will be I read only list, and it will be the movie search result, and it will be the result. That's it, and otherwise we just return an empty array. And that's all for our mock. Now let's use it in the web application factory for the test. So right here, when we configure everything, we will use the services dot remove. We will remove the movie catalog client. We'll use the remove all to remove all of the connections, and then we will add a new. So we will dot add scope, and in the movie catalog client, we will add the fake movie catalog client. And those are all of the changes, and now let's go ahead and create the actual test. So right here, let's add a new, and it will be movie search test. So movie controller test, and let's create it. Now it will use the integration test base. It will inherit from it. Instead of protected, let's use public, and let's go to here. Great. So now let's start writing our test. So the first test will be for the API path when everything is going as it should be. So let's create, it will be a public asynchronous task. We will test the search method, and it will be search, and it will be with known title, and it should return result from catalog client. So from catalog client. So first of all, for the token, var token, because this is an authorized endpoint. For that, we will use await dot register and get token async. We will use it. Now client default request header. So the default request header, we will add the authorization. So authorization, and we will assign it into a new authorization value, and we have the bearer and token. So there we will handle the security. Now let's get the response. So var response, we will use await, and let's go into the search. So let's use the search. Now we expect to get from the query the titles. So let's add question mark and title, and we will assign it into metrics. So this is it. Now we will assert that the response that we will get will be HTTP status code, and it will be OK. So we will assert that. Then we will assert, so result dot await. We will go to the response dot content dot read from JSON asynchronous, and we would use need to return a list of movie results, and this will be the results. And now for the results of our result, we will assert single result we get, and we will assert that the title will be not metrics. Let's change this to the title is the metrics, and that the ID, let's assert dot equals for the ID to be 603 as we define it. So result dot cmdb ID. Great, so this is for the API path. Now let's search. Now let's see what's happening if we try to make the search without the result. So let's copy the response and create another test. So public asynchronous task, it will be search without authentication, and it would just return unauthorized. So we will not have the token, so we will have the response, and we will assert that the response will be unauthorized. Finally, when we will search. And finally, we need to test out what's happened when we search with unknown title, which means we don't have the movie in our database, or we have misspelling or something like that. So let's copy this test because it's super similar to that. Paste it. Now it will be with unknown, so it should be unknown title, and it will return an empty list. Now we set up the authorization, we get it. We can assert that the status code is okay, and we can also assert that the response is okay. And now after the result, we will go erase that, and we will need we'll just assert that it is empty. We'll put a question mark. So this is just simply means that we search and we don't have anything, and it will just return an empty list. That's all. So now we expect to get an empty result, but let's change it a bit for metrics to what's movie we don't have the Spider-Man. Let's just use that. And now we can run the test. So let's run everything. So run all. And now we can see that all of our tests are successful, passing all of the 3 tests that we have created right here. So there we have it. Now we have the search options, and now let's go ahead and create. And now let's go ahead and create the option to add new movies into each user's list. So let's go ahead and create this controller for it to add new movies into each user's movie list, watch list. So let's create a new watch list controller. Let's add everything we need for the controller, like controller base that we need. Yes. Now the API controller annotation and the route to /API /watch list, and of course this endpoint should be authorized. Now we need the database, so private read only, and it will be the context database, so it will be context. Now let's define it, and now let's create a few records. So record, it will be for adding, so add watchlist item request. So add watchlist item request, and it will include an integer for the movie database ID, string for the title, string for the poster path. This could be nullable, so question mark. And finally the status, so watch list status. So watch list status, and it will be the status. Next we will also define the watch list response. So watch list item response, and we will return a GUID for the actual ID, an integer for the movie database ID, a string for the title poster path status, an integer for the rating, it can be null, and a datetime for created. So datetime is for created. So there we have it. Now let's go ahead and create. So it will be http post, not fetch, http post, and it will be asynchronous, so public asynchronous task. We will get the action result, and inside it we'll have a watch list item response, and it will be called just simple add, nothing special. And now for the request, we expect to get it from the body, and this is the request. And nice. Now let's create the actual item. So it will be a new watch list item. First of all, the ID will be created by the database. Next, for the user ID, we will find the current user ID by using GUID. Next, we will need to define the user ID, and for that we will go to user that we have dot find first value and the claim type, and the claim type would be name identifier, which means the ID, and we need to convert it into GUID. So GUID dot parse. So there we have it, and we can use for null in that case. Next, for the movie database ID, you can just take it from the request. The same will go for the title, just request title. Next, we have the poster path, so we can just use request.poster path. Next, we'll have the status. We will just use request status, and finally created will be time now, so we don't actually. And finally, the created, it will be datatime.now. So this is for our item. Next, let's add this into the database. So context.watchlist item dot add, and we'll add this item. Now let's save it. So await dot context, and we will save changes asynchronous, and there we have it. Now let's return. Let's return now a simple OK method, and we need to change this from the item to the response. So now we save the item. Now we need to map this into a proper response. So we will return OK, and inside it we will use new watchlist, new watchlist response, and right here we will put the ID from the item.id, the database ID, the title, the path, status, and the create it. So we save it into the database. Now let's return the result. So return with the OK status, return a new watch list item response, and let's define first of all the ID. It will be item.id. This will be for the item. So now we save it into the data. So we save it into the database, and now we need to return. So OK, and we'll return new, and now we need to extract this. So let's copy it into a new method. Right here it will be a helper method, so private static, and it will return a watch list item response, and it will be to response, and we'll get a watch list item, and it will return a new item with the ID, title, path, status, and created, and we will use it right here. So to response with the item, and it will be a static, not a string. This explains the problem. Let's go over to the tests, and you should create the xunit runner JSON file. I have already got it. With that, you can just copy it. So now let's close all of those extra windows and go to the test, and we need to add a new JSON file. This should be for xunit.runner. So let's add this. First of all, we'll add the schemas. So we will write schema, and we will use a $sign for it. Now the schema will be from https://unit.net/schema/current/schema.json. Next, we will use the preparize assembly. So preparize assembly, and we'll set it to false. And for preparize test collections, we will set it to false as well. So this is everything we need. Next, let's create the test for the API. And next, let's create the test for the watchlist API, watchlist controllers. So it will be the watchlist controller test. It will inherit, and we will add the integration test base, and let's also add this one, and we will change it from protected to public. Great, now let's create the actual test. The first one will be, of course, for the happy path. So let's add, so public asynchronous task, and it will be add, and it will be add with valid item, and it should return OK. First of all, we need the token and authorization, so let's create it real quick. So token, and we will go wait, and we will use the register get token, and we will go to the client dot default request header. We will use authorization, and we will create new authorization with the bear and the token. So this is it. Next, let's create the request. So wait, and we will use post because this is post operation. So post is JSON. We will post to /API/watchlist, and we will create in the body. We'll create a new. And first of all, we have the movie DB. So the movie DB ID, we will assign it into 603. Now for the title, let's assign it into X metrics. Next, let's use the poster path, and we'll assign it into /poster.png, and the status will be to watch, and this is the request. Now let's get the response from it. So we have the response. Now let's make assertions. So first of all, let's assert that the code response that we get, so equals that HTTP codes status codes of OK will be the same one right here, OK. And next, let's ensure that we have this item in our database, that the save was successful. So using var scope, let's use the factory to create a new scope. So factory services create scope. Now we will create the database for the database. Now let's create the database, and next let's find the item. So var item, it will be await because this is a synchronous operation. We will use db dot watchlist item dot single asynchronous, and we will try to find one by the identities. So it will be item, or I for short, item, and item dot the movie ID, it will be 603. So we will find it, and we will first of all assert not null that this item exists, and then we will assert equals that the title is the matrix, the title that we have right here to save. And finally we'll make final assertion. So assert equals, and we want to assert that the status was saved correctly. So watch list status to watch is the item status. So this is for the happy path. Now for the not so happy path, we will first of all have when we don't have authentication. So public asynchronous task add without authorization, and it should return unauthorized. Nice. Now we can just copy this and the status code, and we can just change this from OK to unauthorized. So let's run the tests. So run, and our tests are now running, and they are successful. Great. Now let's go ahead and create the list your own. Now let's go ahead and create the method to list your own watch list. So it should be super simple. So let's go ahead to the controller, to the watchlist controller right here, and after, and right here let's add a new. It will be get, and it will be to get the watchlist. So public, it will be of course asynchronous task, it will get action result, and it will get I read only list of that, and it will be called get mine watchlist, my watchlist, and it won't contain anything. Now let's actually implement this. So var for the items, let's go ahead and make the call to the context. We will go to the watch list item, and where the user ID, so where I for item dot user ID will be equal to this user ID. Now we use it a lot, so we can extract it into an helper method that will be called, that will be private. It would return a GUID, and it will be called current user ID. Great, so we could just use current user ID right here, and right here we will make this into list async. So that's it. Now let's format it so it would look better. Next we can use this helper method right here, so it will be current user ID. Now for this method, now we just return OK with the items inside it. Super simple. And now let's go ahead and create the test. So right here, under here, let's add another test. This one will be for the get mines. So public async task get mine, and it should only return the correct user. So it should only return the current user items. So let's go ahead. We will first of all need the token. So we will have the token. Now we will have multiple users to ensure that each user get its own data. So it will be token user, or just token A for short. And next we'll make the authorization, and we will make the post request. So await, we will go client dot post JSON async. We will post to slash API slash watchlist, and we will have and right here we will add a new And right here we'll add a new item to the watch list. So let's go on to here, we can just copy it and paste it. And now let's create the other user. So token B, we will create the token, we will put it, and we'll make this quest but with different inputs like 205, and we will change it into an inception for the movie. So inception, and it will be poster PNG or something else. Maybe we will just leave it empty, so it will be just null. We need to cast it into a string. So right here we will cast it into a string, into a maybe string. And next the status to be a watch. So there we create the second movie in our watch list. Now let's go to the response. So var response, and it will be so add another movie to the watch list. And now let's go ahead and take and make the call. So make the call to slash not movie slash watch list to get all of the watch list for this user, and let's keep it in the response. Now first of all let's assert that the response status is 200 OK. Next let's extract the items. So it will be a list of watchlist item. Now let's extract the items. So it will be var items, and it will be a list of watch list item DTO. Now let's go ahead right here in the test and actually implement this DTO. So in the integration best right here, let's add another record for the DTO. So the DTO, so GUID for the ID, int for the movie database ID, next string for the title, next string for the poster path, next we need the string for the status, integer for the rating, and the datetime for the created. So this is the DTO. Now let's use it right here. Great. And now let's take a single item. So var item, and let's assign it to assert single item, and let's assert equal that it will be equal to inception that we have right here in the second move. So it should return this one and not this one accidentally. And now let's run up the new test. Now right here, before we'll have any problem, it's best if we use two different emails because we are using this method twice, we will have a conflict. So to avoid it, we will use user a at example.com, and we will use right here for the email user b at example.com. And now let's go ahead and run all of the tests. So let's run all of them, and we have right here, we can see them running, and they are all successful. Next, let's go ahead to our next, and next let's add the update watchlist endpoint to actually update our watchlist. So right here in the watchlist controller, let's add a new endpoint. This will be for HTTP fetch to update. It will be public asynchronous task that will return the response, and it will be to update. And we also need the ID, exactly which item to update. So for that we'll have right here the ID. So we'll take the GUID ID from here, and we also need the request. Now the request will look slightly different. So for that let's add a new record. So public record, and it will be update watchlist list item request, and it will contain the status and the rating. So watch status and the integer for the rating. Now we can change the status and rating because those are the only thing that actually needed to be changed. If you look right here at the response, the ID won't change, the movie database ID won't change, title won't change, poster won't change, and the creation time won't change as well. So this would leave us only with, and this would leave us only with the status to change and the rating to change as well. So for the request, we'll use the update, and let's implement this method. So first of all, let's take this. So let's go and take this item with the ID. Now, if the item is null, we will return not found. And now if item dot user ID is not the current user ID, in that case we will return forbidden, because user is forbid to touch this information. Now, if request dot status is watchlist to watch, and request rating, and the rating in the request dot rating is not null, in that case we will return bad request with the simple message of rating can only be set once the movie is watched, because we don't want to set a rating. So simply, we don't want the user to set a rating for a movie that he didn't watch. Next, if the request status is watched, which means that the user is watched, but the rating is. Now let's check if the request is watched, but we have a problem that the rating is less than 1, which means 0 and or more than 10. So we have a few options. So request dot rating is less than 1, or request dot rating is more than 10, and in that case we will also return a better request, and we will set rating can only be between 1 and 10. That's now this is for our validations. Next, let's go item dot status, and we will update the status and the rating, and now we will save the changes. We can just go and save the changes, and we can return okay with the toResponse method that we have created right here. So this is for it. Now let's go ahead and test this new functionalities. So right here, let's go ahead and create a few more tests. So the first test will be for the, so let's add the test. The first test will be for the happy path. So public asynchronous test, and it will be to the update method, and with valid item it should absolutely work. So let's do this. Let's start with the token. Add the token. Now var add response, the response for adding new item. So let's just copy it from here. Great. So we'll paste it right here, and we'll have a var added, the added item, and from the added response we will take the DTO. Great. So there we have the item. Next, let's make the actual update. So we need this item. So there we have this item. Next, let's make the call to update it. So it's await client. Let's use patch as JSON async, and we will go right here to /API watchlist, and we will use the added ID. Let's put added ID, and now for the actual body, so it will be new. It will be a simple body. First of all, status will be watched, so watch, and the rating, let's set the rating to 9. So this is for the request. Now let's retrieve the response. From it, and now let's make a few assertions. First of all, that the status is okay. Now let's get the updated dated item, and it will be await response DTO, and now we will assert equal. First of all, that we are dealing with the same object. Next, let's assert that the status is watched and the updated status is watched as well, and also that the rating is 9. So let's assert equal 9 to the updated dot rating. Great. So this is for the first test. This is the happy path when everything goes as we wish. Now let's check out the forbidden when user try to update a watchlist that it doesn't when a user try to update a watchlist that he didn't own. So and it will be public asynchronous task, and it will be updated. It will be for the update by non-owner, let's call it, and it should return forbidden. So returns forbidden. So first of all, we have the owner token, so owner token. Next, we would make the call. So call, we will use the added right here, nice, just like that. Next, let's create the not owner user, so other token, and we will just use the client, and we will set the headers to the other token. Now let's make different emails so there won't be any problems. So we will have user a at example.com, and right here we'll have user, and right here we will have user b at example.com, and that's it. Now let's try to make the update request. So we can just copy the request from here. This is the exact same request but with different users in the token. Let's close it so we can see everything clearly. Nice. And now let's assert that the status is forbidden. This is for that test. And now let's assert that we cannot set the rating if we didn't watch. So another test, fact public asynchronous, it will return task, and it will be update, and it will be rating without watching, and it would returns bad request. And this is it. Now let's just copy those 4 lines as we use them constantly. So copy them and copy this as well. Now right here we will not change watch, we will just change it to watch, not watched, and we will expect the status not to be okay, to be bad request. And this is for the update. Now let's run the test, and now let's go ahead and run with all of those 3 new tests and this get test that we didn't do. So right here let's run all of them, and right here all of the tests are running successfully, all 6 of them that we have right here. Now let's continue to the final operation that we have in the controller, which will be to delete a watchlist item. If we don't want it or we accidentally add this, we should have the option to delete an item. So this is exactly what we will implement right now. So right here, let's implement the delete HTTP with the ID. We of course needing the ID, and it will be public asynchronous. It will be a task with the I action result, and it will be delete and only needs the ID. Now we will find out the item. Now we will do the same as we have right here in the updated, so we can just copy those ones, very similar. Next we will remove it and save the changes, and we will return no content, which is 404 status, which is 204, not 404, not found. 204 is the status that tells the user everything went nice, we don't have anything to retrieve to you. So this is it. Now let's go ahead to the watchlist test and create a few tests for the delete. Now there shouldn't be too much testing to do for that, so go right here and let's add a new test. This one will be for the happy path when we deleting everything successfully. So public async task, it will be for the delete, and it will be by owner, and it would remove the item. So remove item, simple. Now the 4 lines that we have right here, so just copy it, copy those. Great. Now let's retrieve the now let's make the request. So await client dot delete async, and we'll just go to slash API slash watchlist with the ID of added dot ID, and that's it. Now let's retrieve the response from that. So response, great. So great. Now let's ensure that the status code is 204 no content, and now let's ensure that this item is no longer in our database. So using var scope, let's create a new scope using the factory dot services dot create scope. Now let's create the context or db, whatever you like, and now we will wait and we will use context for the watchlist item and any async, and we will go with the item and we will try to find the item with the ID of the added items. So where we have the ID with the added item.id, which means the one that we just removed right now. So what we want to do is to assert false, that we will not find that because we delete, which means that the delete operation was successful. Next, for the not be passed, which means when an item when not the owner is trying to delete the item, it should return forbidden. So public async task delete by non-owner, and if you want to remove the item, it would returns forbidden. Great. Now we can go ahead right here and copy those lines, and also the other owner, it's the same actually. Great. Now let's try with the other user to remove this. So we will copy this, it's frankly the same, and let's just assert that the status is forbidden. This test was, it's quite funny, we just stitches multiple code blocks from other tests together. Funny. So those are all of the tests that we actually need to do. So those are all of the tests that we actually need to do for the delete endpoint. And now let's go ahead and run the test. So now let's go ahead and run all of the tests. Right here, run all, and all of our tests are successfully passing. And with that, we actually finished to create our application. So now all of the tests are passing, and with that, we actually finish our application. Now let's commit all of the changes. So let's go right here to the commit right here. So we have all of that. Now let's commit exactly what we need step by step. So we have the movie controller. So first of all, let's make the movie controller test, and let's commit with completing the movie controller test, and let's commit this. Now for all of those commits, those are the last commit. So we will add, so the commit message will be create adding the options to save, update, and delete a watch list for each user with high security. Now let's commit this. Right here, commit, and we have commit everything. Now there is a nice way that you can open your GitHub repository without going to GitHub. Opening a new repository, taking the link from there, going to the terminal, opening anything. There is a much easier way to do this inside of IntelliJ. So right up here, it is not visible in my recording windows, but you have on Mac OS, you will have right above, if you go up, you could see a lot of stuff like code, refactor, build, run, test, tools, and then you will see Git. So you can click on Git, and right here, you will go and click on GitHub, and you will click on share on GitHub. Now, sometimes it may ask you to authorize yourself or something like that, so just click authorize in GitHub, go and authorize, and then you will have this option. Now you can uncheck this private, this will be public, so I will not check it as private. Remote origin, let's give it this name, and the description. So the description will be a nice application to follow up movies and rate them created in ASP.NET Core with REST API, so REST API, and created with REST and the REST API of the movie database, and with PostgreSQL for the database. Now click on share. So now we have our GitHub repository. So let's push everything. So just from the terminal, let's do it. So git push origin main, and everything is up to date. Great. And that's the end. If you made all the way to here, congratulations. I'm very proud of you. This is a really rare milestone to get. Along the way, you have learned much more than just syntax. You have seen how to break down a problem, design solutions, structure an application, and think like a backend developer. Those skills will carry on to every project you will build from now on. But this isn't the finish line. It's the fundamental. Every great developer improves by building, experimenting, making mistakes, and building again. So don't stop here. Add new feature, refactor your code, try different approaches, and make this project your own. If this course helped you, consider leaving a like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and allows us to keep creating more free in-depth courses for developers around the world. If you know someone who wants to become a better developer or a business that could use a modern website or a web application, sharing this channel or our agency is one of the best way you can support the work behind these courses. Thank you for spending time learning here. I genuinely appreciate it. Until next time, keep learning, keep building, and never stop being curious. And I will see you in the next one.